Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking something absolutely massive, the fascinating evolution of India's anti-colonial movement. We're going to trace exactly how a huge, incredibly diverse population living under the thumb of an empire managed to transform scattered, everyday grievances into a unified, unstoppable national identity.
All right, here's our roadmap for The Explainer. We're going to cover the WWI catalyst, the power of Satyagraha, the push for Swaraj, the legendary Great Salt March, fractures within the movement, and finally, how this all forged a national identity. Let's get right into it.
Part 1. The WWI catalyst, or the pressure cooker environment. So to really grasp how this mass movement exploded, you gotta look at the inciting obstacle: everyday survival. Between 1918 and 1921, things were literally at a breaking point. We're talking severe, widespread crop failures across the country. And then, right on top of those acute food shortages, a devastating influenza epidemic swept through. The baseline survival of citizens was just incredibly vulnerable. Now imagine struggling just to feed your family. And then the British Empire hands you the bill for their World War. It's wild. To fund their military, the British squeezed the Indian populace hard. We're seeing massive new defense expenditures, higher customs duties, and, yep, a brand new income tax. And it was even worse in the rural areas, where they actually forced recruitment into the British Army. That sparked some deep, visceral anger. The pressure cooker wasn't just sealed, it was whistling. Moving on to Section 2, the power of Satyagraha, where a completely new strategy emerges.
When Mahatma Gandhi came back to India in January 1915, he brought this radically different approach with him, Satyagraha. Now, it's absolutely crucial to understand this wasn't just passive submission. No way. It was an active, unyielding reliance on truth to fight oppression. The whole idea was, if your cause is just, you literally don't need physical force to defeat your oppressor. It was a game changer of a mass agitation method based entirely on nonviolence.
And what's really amazing here is how quickly he tested this new ideology out in highly specific, local disputes before taking the whole thing national. Think of these as the proving grounds for Satyagraha. In 1917, he heads to Champaran to back peasants fighting this oppressive indigo plantation system. That same year, he's in Kedah, organizing relief for folks hit hard by crop failures and the plague. And then bam, the very next year in 1918, he's in Ahmedabad supporting cotton mill workers. He was building trust on the ground, fine-tuning his methods, and proving that this nonviolent truth force actually worked. Okay, Section 3, the push for Swaraj. We're talking escalation and non-cooperation. So, by 1919, the British hit back at all this rising dissent with draconian new measures, totally changing the stakes. The Rowlatt Act absolutely shocked the nation. This one piece of legislation handed the government enormous powers to crush political activity. But the most terrifying part? They could lock up political prisoners without a trial for up to 2 full years. 2 whole years of your life, gone, with zero due process. Just imagine that. Well, all that tension eventually erupted into a devastating tragedy on April 13, 1919. General Dyer ordered troops to fire into a peaceful, unarmed crowd at Jallianwala Bagh. His reason? To quote, produce a moral effect. Horrific, right? But instead of striking terror, this act sparked massive strikes across the entire country, and it made Gandhi realize a fundamental truth. British rule in India was surviving for one reason only: because Indians were cooperating with it. To achieve Swaraj, or self-rule, Gandhi launched the non-cooperation movement in 1921. Check out this step-by-step withdrawal of support. Step 1. Surrender British titles. Step 2. A massive boycott of British civil services, the army, police, courts, and schools. And Step 3. Hit him in the wallet by boycotting foreign goods. Crucially, Gandhi also teamed up with the Ali brothers to tie this to the Khalafi issue. It was a brilliant move that successfully brought Hindus and Muslims together under one massive umbrella of resistance.
But this incredible momentum just slammed to a halt in 1922. What happened was a peaceful demonstration in a place called Chauri Chaura escalated into a violently fatal clash. Now, remember Gandhi's absolute, unwavering commitment to nonviolence? Well, the literal second blood was shed, he abruptly called the whole thing off. The entire non-cooperation movement just canceled. Which brings us to Section 4, the Great Salt March, and the crucial shift to civil disobedience.
So, jumping ahead slightly, following the All-British Simon Commission in 1928, the 1929 Lahore session declared Purna Swaraj, meaning full independence, and that required a major escalation. Look at the strategic leap here. In 1921, the movement was all about withdrawing support. But by 1930, it shifted to active civil disobedience. They weren't just staying home anymore, they were going out and deliberately breaking colonial laws. To kick off this defiance, Gandhi needed a symbol that touched literally every single Indian, and he picked something brilliantly simple: salt. Everyone consumes it, right? But the British had a monopoly on it, and they taxed it heavily. So Gandhi marched 240 miles from Sabarmati to Dandi just to illegally manufacture it by boiling seawater. By breaking this one basic law, it was like a spark. It inspired the whole country to defy colonial authority, boycott liquor shops, and straight up refuse to pay taxes.
And you know what? This massive, deliberate lawbreaking actually forced the British government to the negotiating table. It led directly to the Gandhi-Irwin Pact in 1931, a truce where Gandhi agreed to pause the movement and attend a roundtable conference over in London. And in exchange, the government agreed to release political prisoners. You could tangibly feel the power dynamic shifting here. Let's dive into Section 5, Fractures in the Movement, looking at some of the internal limits. Now, we have to acknowledge that a mass movement of this scale is naturally going to face internal ideological limits and political clashes. Different groups simply had different visions for a free India. For instance, Dalit leaders, spearheaded by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, really pushed for separate electorates to ensure true political empowerment, which actually led to a major clash with Gandhi and resulted in the 1932 Pune Pact. Meanwhile, some Muslim organizations were hesitant to fully dive in because they had deep, valid fears that their minority culture and identity might just get completely swallowed up by a majority Hindu population. It's so important to understand that these factions had very real, valid concerns about their representation and cultural survival.
Finally, Section 6. Forging a national identity and creating a sense of collective belonging.
Even with those political fractures, there was an undeniable cultural awakening happening that unified the masses. It's honestly fascinating how art, mythology, and tradition were actively used to forge a shared identity. Leaders popularized the image of Bharat Mata, literally Mother India, giving everyone this unified figure to rally behind. They revived traditional folklore to restore local pride, designed the tricolor Swaraj flag, and crucially, they started reinterpreting history. They highlighted India's massive past achievements in science and math to directly counter the whole British narrative that Indians were somehow backward or incapable of self-governance. So you see, this anti-colonial movement wasn't just a series of random protests. It was the active, deliberate construction of a nation's soul through nonviolence and a reclaimed heritage. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a thought. How do the symbols, the folklore, and the shared histories of our past continue to shape our own national identities today? Think about it. Thanks for exploring this history with me, and I'll see you in the next explainer.